Welcome to Training Tuesday. My name is Sandra Poppema from HippoLogic, and today I will talk about the topic how you can put a behavior on cue. When I started traditional horse training, I never had to think about this really much, and I just had no idea how to do it. And then 20 years ago, I started natural horsemanship, and in natural horsemanship, I worked with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and phase 1 usually did not include the aversive, but it became associated with the behavior. For instance, I had to wiggle my finger, and then if the horse didn't respond, and of course in the beginning the horse didn't respond because he had no clue what to expect, then the aversive came in, and it was reinforced by taking the aversive away. So the horse started to associate your little finger with something bad, something uncomfortable, or sometimes even painful is coming, so I'll better back up. In positive reinforcement training, it's quite different because you train the behavior first. And once the behavior is established, then there is a need for a cue. For instance, if you teach your horse to walk by following a moving target, there becomes one point in training that you need another cue, because if you train it, the target stick will become part of your cue. But once you want to take that behavior into the saddle and teach your horse to walk, then you don't want to take your target stick with you all the time. Or if you create another behavior with the target stick, for instance, a trot or the canter, you need specific cues for your horse to distinguish between walk, trot, canter. So how do you put cue on behavior? Part 1, you shape the behavior in a specific context and you reinforce the behavior. You mark the behavior with a click and then you reinforce the behavior. So you shape the behavior. For instance, if you want to teach your horse to walk, you use the target stick, presuming that your horse already knows that touching the target stick with the nose will lead to a click and a reinforcer. So that's phase 1. So you hold the target, your horse walks over to the target because, well, it's one step away. You click and reinforce for moving towards the target stick. You don't click and reinforce for touching the target stick because you want to click and reinforce the behavior walking. Phase 2. Your horse starts to associate a certain context with a specific behavior. He knows that he can expect a click and a reinforcer. If you hold the target stick in front of him, he knows if I walk towards the target stick, I will receive a click and a reinforcer. So I call that the context cue. It's kind of the same as a working title. If you write something, it's a working cue. The horse chooses this cue because it is his association. He thinks that being in the arena is a part of this cue. The target stick is a part of the cue. The trainer is a part of the cue. And he makes all of this that he thinks, well, if I walk to the target stick, I will receive a click and a reinforcer. So that's good. He knows the behavior. So in phase 3, you can add your cue to the behavior. For instance, a verbal cue or a verbal cue in combination with a body language cue. And you offer your cue just before or during the desired behavior. For instance, you present the target stick and you say, walk on, and the minute or the moment your horse starts to walk, you click and reinforce the behavior. You can do the same with trot. You say, you present the target, and then you say, as soon as the horse starts to trot towards the target stick, you can say trot and click and reinforce. Phase 3 is that you test your cue. Of course, phase 3 is like a lot of repetition. And then phase 4 is that you test your cue by giving the cue before the behavior or before the working cue, the context cue. So you say walk on, and then you present the cue. So you make your horse successful. And the last phase is called stimulus control. You fade out your clicks and reinforcers if you don't give the cue. So if there is a target and you present the target and your horse touches the target, you will not click and reinforce that behavior anymore. You will only click and reinforce the behavior if you told or if you're given the cue, if you ask your horse to walk or touch. So you fade out the click and reinforcer without the cue, and you only start to click and reinforce after you get the desired behavior when you have given a cue. So if your horse starts to walk, you don't click and treat for that. You only click and treat after you told your horse walk on. And if he does it, he gets a click and treat. And then you fade out the clicks and the reinforcers if it is on stimulus control, if it is on cue. So thank you very much for listening. This is how I teach a cue, or how I put a cue on a behavior. And I hope to see you in the next training Tuesday. If you want to learn more about horse training and positive reinforcement training, I do have an online course. It's an 8-week online course, and it's called Ultimate Horse Training Formula: Key Lessons, Your Key to Success in Positive Reinforcement Training. So you can find that on my website, clickertraining.ca. This was Tuesday training for today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.